night. I know most of you are all used to the Wicked Edge, but I decided to take a new approach with my show. So we're going to be Drinks with Tiffani Beth, and I'm still your favorite Wicked Wild Child, Tiffani Beth. And I want everybody to grab their cocktails. I want you to put your feet up, maybe snuggle in a blanket if you're really, really cold and up north. If you're down south or out west, put your feet up on the beach and sip a margarita and know how jealous of you I am. Because it's freezing up here in upstate New York. I'm dying. So my drinks are consisting of coffees with Bailey's Irish cream. That's what I'm doing because it's oh my goodness. I am so excited. I'm starting a new show. I've reformed it. It's going to be kind of the same format of the Wicked Edge, but it's going to be a lot more broader. We're going to have so many more wonderful guests on. We're going to be talking about a slew of things. We're going to animal advocacy, authors, A-list celebrities, musicians. It's going to be fantastic. You're not going to want to miss an episode. And tonight I have a very, very awesome guest. He is an author. He has been through so much, and he has such an inspirational message to give, and that could really teach people and feed your soul. And I think it's important for our souls to be fed, because without it, I think we become lost, and we don't want to do that. So in just a few minutes, I'm going to bring on Mr. Youssef, and he's going to come on, and he's going to talk about himself and his books and what led him to write his books and all the adversities he's overcome. And hopefully you'll get something from it, and it'll feed your soul and feed your heart and help you overcome what things you might be facing. Because let's be honest, life is never perfect. No matter how happy or whatever's going on, there's always something going on that you could always use a little inspirational support. It never hurts. Before we get to Mr. Youssef, I would really like to give a shout-out to a couple of our sponsors. The Caring Coaching Center. Speaking of overcoming and becoming better, the Caring Coaching Center, you definitely want to contact Karen Kennedy. Go to www.thecaringcoachingcenter.com. Go to her website and look over the wonderful tools she has to help you become a better you. I don't want to say a better person, but a better you, better parts of you. If you want to lose weight, she'll help you lose weight. If you want to specifically meet your needs, who doesn't want that? Just you, just her, all about you, all about making everything better. So go to www.thecaringcoachingcenter.com, email Karen today, get a fresh start on everything, and make tomorrow brighter. Also, Jackie Bowling, psychic medium. Not a huge fan of psychic people, but she's a really nice person. I feel she is very gifted. She was the only psychic that didn't ask me questions about myself and then gave me those general cryptic answers like, oh, you love the color purple because I'm wearing the color purple. She talked to me and told me things about my family and friends and about myself that I'd never told anybody, and that I'd never told her because I'd never met her before. So she's very, very gifted. So please go to www.dtmwickedradio.com. Click on the sponsor page and scroll down to Jackie Bowling. Get a reading today. Get a spiritual cleansing. She really is a phenomenal person. It's all confidential. She's so super sweet, and I really feel she's gifted. Again, not a huge fan of psychic. Not really, but she's one that I would honestly go to bat for 100 times out of 100 because she really is quite gifted. So it's www.dtmwickedradio.com. Click on the sponsor page, roll down to the Jackie Bowling, and click on her contact her today. You're not going to regret it. Also, Rolling Hills Asylum, we're going to have a bunch of stuff coming up. You're not going to want to miss it. Events. It's going to be a lot of fun. So go to www.dtmwickedradio.com, click on the sponsor page, and scroll down to Rolling Hills Asylum. Also, Salem Con is coming up. And we're going to be in Salem Con. You're never going to get there. You're going to be like, oh, my God, I'm so surprised when I tell you. It's going to be in Salem, Massachusetts. I bet you didn't see that coming. Not from the name Salem Con. You were like, I don't know what this is going to be. And now that I told you, like, your mind is blown, right? Oh, it's from Salem Con. But that's where it's going to be. It's going to be at the Nathaniel Hawthorne Hotel. It's going to be an investigation. Josh Gates is going to be there. John Stathis. A bunch of paranormal celebrities. A lot of fun. Get your tickets now. You can go to www.dtmgoodradio.com for more information on your ticket. Go on because they're going fast. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, again, Salem Pond, Salem, Massachusetts, April 10th through the 13th. You're not going to want to miss it. So, and one more thing, people, it is freaking cold. It is cold. Please bring your pets inside. Bring them all inside. If you see a stray animal, bring it inside. Please. It's cold, and it's windy, and it's wet, and you don't want to be left out in the cold, right? So, for heaven's sake, bring your pets inside. They're people too, gosh darn it. My animals are family. They're family. They sleep with us. So yours should be too. So bring them inside. It's very, very cold. And on that note, I'm going to be doing a lot of animal advocacy shows. Keep in touch. I'm going to be advocating for a lot of no-kill shelters, for animal charities, things like that. So please keep an eye open for all those new things, because we need to raise awareness about this. We need to get rid of kill shelters. So, and we need to stop the abuse and neglect. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our guest, because I had a very pleasurable time talking to him before the show. Such a kind, sweet man, and such a gracious man to come on my show and share his book with us. And I can't wait to hear more. So let's bring on Mr. Tom Uford. Hi, Mr. Uford. How are you?
Tiffany, thank you very much. I'm doing great. A lot warmer than you guys in upstate New York. I wish I could send you some of my hot chili.
That would be welcome, because it would probably warm us up, because I am just shivering like a leaf. It's not fun. Every year I'm thinking, why am I living here? I could be in Fiji on the beach. I don't know why I'm here. Gosh darn. So, like I said, I read up on you a lot. I've heard about you a lot, and you have overcome so many things. And I really love the fact that after everything you've overcome, you found strength to climb next level mountains, if you will. You know, you found the strength to just keep going and moving on. And through every decision, every obstacle you've had in your life, you've found lessons in it, which I find so inspiring, because not a lot of people can do that, but you did. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, you were very welcome. I thank you for sharing it, because it is hard. I think sometimes when people go through hardships, it's hard to see past tomorrow.
Definitely.
And, you know, reading about your book, you definitely saw past further than tomorrow, and that's very inspiring. Can you tell us about yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and your books and how they all kind of form into one.
Well, I'm 49 years old. I have survived the last 22 and a half years with 3 different disabilities. August of 1992, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. The month after that, September 28, 1992, I was a passenger in a one-car accident, and I suffered an incomplete spinal fracture at C5, C6. And the month after that, I was diagnosed HIV positive. And all of that made for 1992 was a rough year. But I am doing exceptionally well. My last doctor's visit, my doctor says I'm in excellent health. My MS is in remission. The side effects from my spinal fracture are controlled with medication, and my HIV is non-detectable, has been for the last 3 years, and my T cells are back up to normal. I am in excellent health. God has blessed me very much.
Oh, absolutely. Now, I have to ask, because I think everybody would be curious about it. You say your HIV is non-detectable. Was that controlled with lifestyle? Was that controlled with drugs? Now, is that also kind of like in a remission type thing?
Actually, with HIV, they have developed wonderful medications. I'm on a medication called Atripla. And my doctor, who I've had for 14 years, is one of the world's leading experts on AIDS and HIV. I'm very fortunate to have had him for a doctor as long as I had. One of the things that we discussed when I was first diagnosed was that I did not want to immediately jump on any retroviral medications until I had to. Basically, with HIV, the government does not categorize you as having AIDS until your T cells drop below 200 or below. Mm-hmm. The average person has between 850 and 1,200 white T cells, which means they're normal. So I was very fortunate that my T cells have never dropped that low. But we set as a benchmark that when they dropped below 350, we would start on a retroviral medication. Mm-hmm. So for a number of years, I didn't have to worry about that. But when my T cells did start to decline due to stress or various, getting the flu or other viral instances where your T cells decline because they're fighting illnesses in your body, we decided to go on a tripla. A tripla is a miracle medication. I've been on it for 4.5 years now, and it basically combats the virus in your bloodstream. And when they say it's non-detectable, that doesn't mean that you don't still have it. What it means is that your T cells are strong enough and back to a normal state where they can fight the virus, and you're not in the process of getting the HIV subsequent illnesses that the virus allows your body to develop because your T cells are too low. So basically, I'm in excellent health. I'm basically back to normal health, other than the fact that I can't walk. I'm in an electric wheelchair, but I'm not paralyzed, thank God. I have full bowel and bladder control, thanks to the fact that my spinal fracture was incomplete. I just can't walk because one of the side effects of MS is what is known as foot drop. I cannot pick up the front of my feet, so my feet drag. But I periodically do have sessions of physical therapy here in my home. I have a weekly nurse that comes out to see me. The state does provide for a home health aide that comes in to help me with household cleaning and meal preparation. One of the disadvantages that I have is because of the spinal fracture, I cannot use my hands very well. I have the use of 3 fingers in my right hand and the use of 2 fingers in my left hand, which makes, writing somewhat difficult. But I have typing sticks that I used to type with, and my life partner was gracious and got me 2 years ago a Dragon program, which is a voice-activated computer program. So all I have to do is talk into the microphone, and it types my words out for me.
That's fantastic. That's really great. I mean, the fact that, you do have help and somebody who's there to support you, that's a big thing. That's really great.
Yeah, it makes the difference between existing and living.
Absolutely, 100%. I'm glad that you said it that way, because there's so many people out there who do, I hate to use the word suffer, but I guess suffer from some of the same things that you do, and other things as well, that don't have the support, and they really do just exist. Basically, they exist until they no longer exist. But when you have support, you can live, you can be able to do things when you have the help and love of other people.
Exactly, and my book, Adversity Builds Character, was released 3 years ago. We're in the process of releasing a second edition. The ebook is already out, the second edition, but we're in the process of getting the print versions done. But this book was originally written, it's dedicated to my mom and my grandmother. My mom had MS the last 10 years of her life. And for anyone out there who has had to take care of a loved one who is basically dying day by day, they can fully appreciate what I'm saying. Mom got to the point where she gave up. She got tired of fighting. And when I was 10 years old, she tried to commit suicide, and I stopped her. And that's when her best friend, my godmother, Joy Campbell, stepped in. Her family took me in, raised me as my mom saw fit. But thanks to the Campbell family, they put me back on the right track, because at age 10, Mom couldn't do anything. I was doing the cleaning, I was doing the cooking, and trying to go to school, and trying to take care of Mom. And in the book, I write in detail about the struggles that Mom went through. Chapter 9 is called Goodbye, Mom, and it goes into great detail about her tragic death. Happened when I was 19 years old. She was the victim of a mercy-killing suicide. One of her best friends of 40 years was living with her, taking care of her. And I saw her on Mother's Day in 1985. 2 days later, the housekeeper showed up at the house. And when she came in, she found Dudley on his knees in the living room, had shot himself, and he'd shot my mom in her sleep. Now, that may sound caustic and dramatic, and it was the first time in my life I could have been a millionaire. Dudley was a very wealthy man. I could have sued his estate for wrongful death. However, I know in my heart and soul that my mom asked Dudley to put her out of her misery. Dudley loved her as only a best friend can. And he knew that they would probably lock him up and throw away the key. So he saw no reason to continue living as well. The last 4 years that he was living with my mom, taking care of her, were the happiest days of his life. So I say all of that to emphasize the fact that when the human spirit gives up, that's when we see no hope. We see no future in front of us. There are so many people in this world who, we all have problems, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I respond in the book with the aspect of, look, your problems look like mountains to you. They look like molehills to me. But we all face problems. It's part of the human condition. And I'll read you a quote here from the book. Adversity Builds Character was written with three major ideas in mind. First, life is a bed of roses, but not without thorns.
Mm-hmm.
Second, no matter how bad your life is, just take a look around and you'll find someone who has it worse. Finally, like the poem Footsteps in the Sand, God is always with you, and he never gives you more than you can really handle. And those are the basic three precepts of the book. And I encourage people to read it, to pass it on to someone who they feel needs hope in their lives, needs courage, needs strength. That was what the book was written for. It was meant to be an inspiration for people who are having a hard time, to cope with their adversities in life. And I'll put a plug in here. All of the books I write, a portion of my royalties go directly to charity. There's not a book that I sell that doesn't contribute to charity, because I firmly believe in giving back. The good Lord has blessed me in my life, and I firmly believe in giving back as best I can. And there's another short story I want to tell there that I mentioned in the book. When I was in a bar several years ago, and the bartender, gave me my drink, and I gave him a fairly sizable gratuity. And the man standing next to me shook his head, and I looked at him and I said, well, what's wrong? And he said, well, in your condition, in your limited income, that's a pretty generous gift. And I said, hey, the good Lord's been good to me. Why can't I be good to other people? Mm-hmm. And this was how I responded. I said, I have food in my gut, a roof over my head, clothes on my back, a little money to get by on, friends who care about me, and those who love me. Really, what else matters? It gives one pause when we want to whine and complain about how bad our lives are.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. That's a very good way to look at it. And, you know, I think sometimes we can look at that way. I think a lot of us look at it life that way. When things are going well, when things are going bad, we forget that we have food in our gut and a roof over our head and clothes on our back and people that love us. You know, and that it's good to be generous with not just gratuity, monetary things, but generous with our hearts, generous with our person, generous with our, you know, with our time. And I think it's easy to remember that when you're going well, but it's in the times of when things aren't doing well, you have to remember not only do some people have it worse than others. It doesn't matter how bad you've had it. There's always a silver lining. You just have to, sometimes you have to create it, and sometimes you just have to realize it's there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love that you said that. Now, it kind of provokes questions for you. Now, 1992 was clearly a rough year for you. A lot happened, and I'm sure a lot has happened since. With each obstacle, you know, what made you overcome it? And then what also, after you overcame all these obstacles, what made you sit and realize, you know what, I could share my wisdom with people? I think it would be a good idea if I sat down and put everything in the Word.
Well, I'll answer the second part of your question first. I have to give credit and thanks to my godmother, Joy Campbell. She passed away about, it's going on 6 years now. Excuse me. But she was the driving force behind writing the book. She told me, she said, Tom, you have got such, you've been through so much in your life. You really need to write it down. It could really help other people. And she said, what good are the lessons you've learned if you can't pass them on to help other people? And she was so right about that. I'll be the first to admit I was raised Roman Catholic, and I still believe very strongly in my faith. But I'll be the first to admit I'm not a Bible thumper, and I'm not as religious as I used to be. I'm extremely spiritual. I pray constantly, but I don't necessarily go to a brick and mortar church all the time.
Can I just say I agree with that because I feel a Christian of faith, and I feel my relationship is between me and God, not me and a million other people.
Exactly.
And I don't feel like I have to. I do go to church sometimes when, you know, for Christmas and things like that, because I think sometimes those are times it brings a sense of community. Other times I think it brings a sense of you need to listen to what I say because God speaks through me, not you, and this is how it is, which is what turned me off from the church in the first place. So I love the fact that you're spiritual because you can have faith, you can be saved, and you don't have to be around a bunch of people.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a Eucharistic minister that comes to my home every week and brings me Eucharist. My home health aide is very devoted and committed with her church. I've been with her and her family to their services a number of times. You know, one of my favorite quotes is by the French philosopher Voltaire. Voltaire once wrote, he said, you know, God is a comedian whose audience is afraid to laugh. And for me, that actually describes organized religion. In the world today, and I'm gonna get on my political soapbox here. Your audience will be perhaps interested to know I am very politically motivated, have been since the age of 17. I've worked on 11 political campaigns. I worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for 2 U.S. congressmen, a state governor. My former political mentors include a special assistant to Ronald Reagan, a former assistant chief of staff to Vice President George H.W. Bush, and the most recently retired U.S. Trade Ambassador, former Dallas Mayor Ron Kirk. So I'm very involved, and I was at one time very involved in the front lines of politics. And my most recent books have all focused on my political thoughts and beliefs. But what I'm getting at here is that in the world today, we have the conflicts between ISIS, Al-Qaeda, people who want to pervert their religions in the name of God.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other cause on earth that more human beings have not been killed for than in the name of God. And it concerns me deeply that, I am a firm believer in God Almighty. I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. That's my belief. But I am convinced that when we die and we go where we go, the good Lord is going to be laughing at all of us because none of us have got it right. I mean, St. Paul wrote in his gospel that when he had his vision of heaven and he awoke, his followers asked him, so what was it like? And he wrote that the awesomeness of God cannot be conceived within the human mind. And I'm convinced that none of us have got it right. And it concerns me when we have these religious conflicts between Muslims, between Christians, between Jews, that could potentially bring us to the brink of Armageddon. This is not what God intended. This is not the way I believe in a loving God. And that's one of the reasons I became a writer, too, is I wanted to, since I could no longer be on the front lines of politics and in social causes, I wanted to reach out. I've been blessed by God to be given the talent to write. And I am a good public speaker as well. I spent a year as a Rotary Foundation international graduate scholar in Australia studying East Asian political affairs. And during that year in Australia, I was required to give 5 speeches before I left, 5 speeches while I was there, and 5 speeches when I came back. Well, I gave the 5 here before I left, but while I was in Australia, I gave 26 speaking engagements.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that, my grandmother used to say, she said, well, you've got one of the biggest mouths in the South, you might as well use it. And so, the written word and the spoken word are a way to reach people, to inspire them, to uplift them. And too often we are distracted by people who want to focus on the petty things in life. My recent book, Political Craps, that title describes absolutely what I think of politics in America today. It was written with 3 primary aspects in mind. The word craps, the cover of the book is a craps table, because I believe that our political leaders today are playing a betting game with our future, and they're doing it at risking this nation's future, because they're not being leaders anymore, they're being politicians. The second purpose was that, every American generally has this belief that politics is a bunch of BS. So that's the second definition for political craps. And the third definition, craps is an acronym that stands for compromise, rancor, affluence, policy, and stupidity.
Uh-huh.
But what I'm getting at with this book is that we that have been given God-given talents to write and to speak have an obligation. My Jesuit educators and my adopted family taught me the French phrase from the French Revolution, noblesse oblige, which loosely translated means that if you've been blessed with either wealth, position, title, or education, you have an obligation to give back to mankind. And my gifts that I've been blessed with, I have an obligation to give back and try to make this world a better place. And all of that comes around in full circle with Adversity Builds Character. I wrote the book to inspire people to realize that they, even though they've had adversity, even though their life, excuse my French, may suck, okay, they do have the opportunity to live lives of purpose. I look so much at our returning veterans from 13 years of foreign wars, and it concerns me greatly. These individuals have sacrificed and have given so much in the name of freedom, and we have an obligation to help them readjust and to reacclimate themselves into society. And, you know, I may be in a wheelchair, but so many of my friends have said, you know, Tom, you may be in a wheelchair, but you don't make an issue of it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you stand strong. And in fact, my charity organization that I do my donations from is called Stand Strong for Others, because I firmly believe in that. Here, I'm gabbing too much. Go ahead.
No, you make my job way easier. You know, I'm glad you said all of that. That's awesome, and it's so informative, and it's really, really true. I think it's great.
Thank you.
I love the fact that you do take a political stance. I don't think a lot of people do in your position for what you do. So I think it's so great, and I love the fact that you're giving our listeners insight into who you are, because I think then it makes your book all that much more meaningful, and I think it really draws people into wanting to read it.
Well, I hope so, because, I mean, the books, I mean, let's face it, anybody who's ever written, I mean, there in this world today, there are 600,000 books printed every year, okay? With the modern technology that we have, any Joe Blow on the street can write a book and go on the internet and get it uploaded and printed, okay? Mm-hmm. But for people who really have the gift of writing and really have the talent to make their words touch the human soul and reach the human heart and uplift the human spirit, they have an obligation to give back to make this world a better place. And I firmly believe that that is one of my core principles in my life. God has me here for a reason. And I firmly believe that if I can reach people through my books, if they can be inspired and they can smile a little bit, cry a little bit, and be touched a little bit by the words that I've written, then I've served my purpose in this world.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's so great. And, you know, there's a bunch of different books in the world, some for entertainment values, some for all sorts, and I think they're all equally important. But when you find a book with an author like you that, you know, is really trying hard to make people see and understand that, you know, just because something happens, it doesn't mean you're down and out for the count. Use it as a way to better yourself. Use it as a step up than a step down. I think that's so important. I wish more people would read books like that, but then maybe they'd see the better part of life than just, you know, maybe what's right in front of them in their television.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you know, life is not easy. No one promised that it would be. I mean, that was one of the reasons I wrote Life is a Bed of Roses, but not without thorns. And you're a damn fool if you think otherwise. Life was not meant to be easy. And no one promised you that it would be. I get very chagrined and concerned when I hear young people today with attitudes that they think the world owes them something. The world does not owe you anything, but you owe yourself self-respect and dignity. One of the other quotes from my book, Adversity Builds Characters, I wrote, "Honesty, integrity, and respect are personal attributes bestowed on one's character through a life well lived and earned from others, not achieved by self-appointment. This was a lesson in life that I learned only through adversity." You know, people who have not suffered, people who have not, they've had it an easy go, they don't know what it means to appreciate the finer things in life when things go rough. You know, when I first moved to Dallas back in 1991, I read there was a long article in D Magazine, and it was talking about the rich kids from University Park. And it's called Life in the Bubble. and it was talking about these rich kids who had no concept whatsoever of what real life was like. Now, I read that, and I came away with the quote. I said, rich people have problems just like everybody else. The only difference is they have better scenery.
True. It's so true. And hearing you say that, it's interesting. Like, I worked for a children's psychiatric hospital. Now, mind you, some of the kids were really sick. I mean, mentally ill. And sometimes you can't really teach mentally ill people that because it's just not in their chemical makeup. And I get that. But there's some children who really feel that the world owes them something because of something they went through. And granted, some of the things these kids went through, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy's dog or my worst enemy. But it doesn't give them the right to take out their aggression on people just because they feel they have the right to. I wish you'd go to these places and speak, and maybe they'd understand because, kids, I've actually been put on the AIDS cocktail like 20 times because I've been bitten so bad they drew blood. I've had my hair pulled out so bad it cracked my scalp, and all because they thought they had the right to try to punch me in the or smash me in the face with the dresser drawer because I asked them to clean the room and I didn't understand what they'd been through. And I'm like, I don't really have to understand what you've been through to know that you're just taking it way too far, and that you don't have to lean on your past as a crutch. You can use it to better yourself. And so I wish you should definitely go into speaking at these places because I think it would help them more, because where you said, you have to have the bad to appreciate the good, even when I would tell them, you have bad days, so you don't take the good ones for granted, they'd be like, I don't deserve bad days. I'm like, it's not that you deserve them, they just happen, and you have to make the best of them.
Yeah. And bad things happen to good people. That's just part of life. I'm trying to put together a speaking career. So I reach out to your listeners. Anybody who wants to have me come and speak, I would be more than happy to. I live off Social Security income, so I may need assistance with transportation, etc. But I would love to come and speak to schools, to universities, to hospitals, to patients. Because look, we've all got it rough. Okay, every one of us, some of us better than others. But my attitude is this: if I can survive drug addiction, alcohol addiction, sex addiction, the attempted suicide of my mother, her dying from being the victim of a mercy killing, lived through 5 divorces in my immediate family, being transferred from my biological family to an adopted family, and 3 disabilities, all in my short life of 49 years. And most of that happened before I turned 30. Okay? If I can survive all of that, then other people can survive what they're facing as well. There is nothing that the human spirit cannot overcome. If we have hope, if we have vision, and we have direction, and you have to set in your heart, your mind, and your soul, I'm not giving up. My theme song for my life is by Corey Hart, and it's called Never Surrender. I am not going to surrender. They're going to write that on my tombstone. And I'm a firm believer in that. And that's my goal in life, is to inspire other people that, look, I know you've got it tough, and I may not be able to empathize with exactly what you've been through, but I've been through some tough times myself, so I know pain, I know agony, I know tough times. And if I can survive it, so can you.
Absolutely, 120%. I completely agree with you. I do have one last quick question because we're running really short on time.
Okay.
When did you realize that what you went through were lessons in life and not tragedies? Because it took me a little while in my life to realize everything I went through was meant to be to teach me something. When did you realize that?
That's a great question, Tiffany. When I was diagnosed with MS in August of '92, that was kind of rough because I had to quit the job that I loved very much because I was having problems walking. And then I had the car accident, and I write about that in detail in the chapter called Crash in my book, Adversity Builds Character. But, when they confirmed that I was HIV positive, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. And I write about it in the book that for 3 or 4 days, I sat alone in my hospital room looking out the window. And I had to do self-reflection. I had to pray. And, we all go through those questions of doubt. Why is this happening to me? God, why did you do this to me? What have I done that, this is in my life? But you know what? I came to the conclusion that life is not easy, that God had a purpose for me. And whether you believe in God or not is not important. I believe in God, and I think believing in God is important. But for those who don't believe in God, you have to think of yourself in this way. There is something bigger than yourself that you have to live and strive to live a meaningful life for. Otherwise, what's the point? You might as well just crawl up and die. Because if you're not here to live for something that's bigger than yourself, then you're just treading water.
I agree, 120%. Gosh, what great lessons. What a wonderful, wonderful book. What a wonderful, outlook. And I'm so glad you're sharing them. And I'm so thankful that, you did decide that, this was a lesson, not a tragedy. And I need to share, that life is okay. You just have to learn from everything that happens. And I absolutely love that. Where can people find your book?
All of my books are on Amazon.com. I have 8 of them out at the moment. They all have been Amazon top sellers. One of them, my book of quotations called On the Roll Again, has a picture of me on the front where 2 people are helping me stand up from my wheelchair for a charity event that I do every year. And it was a #1 bestseller. You can also go to audible.com for the audio versions of several of the books because all of my audio books, I donate a portion of my royalties to the Perkins School for the Blind because there are people out there that can't read or for visual impairments aren't able to read my words, so I decided I put them in audio version so they could at least hear the words. You can go to Barnes & Noble. I'm thrilled to death that just within the last 10 days, Barnes & Noble has accepted my recent book, Political Craps, to go on their bookshelves in their stores. And you can go to Kobo. You can go to Amazon. You can go to Barnes & Noble. Adversity Builds Character right now is at Titan. Not at Titan. It's at iUniverse.com. My most recent book, Political Craps, is at TitanInkCorp.com. Or you can go to my website, www.tomuford.com. And I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. So, connect with me. I would love to chat with people and do what I can to inspire you and give you strength to cope with your adversities.
Oh, that's fantastic. I want to thank you so much for coming on my show. It has been nothing short of a pleasure. You've been so gracious and kind, and I'd love to have you back sometime because I just think you're fantastic.
Tiffany, thank you. One other thing I wanted to say, they can also find my video trailers on YouTube. You just have to type in my name and they'll all pop up because some of them are pretty inspirational. I'm very proud of those. It has been an honor and a privilege, and I'm very grateful and deeply humbled that you've asked me to be on your show. And I look forward to further communications and maybe coming back again.
Absolutely. I can't wait. I think it'll be great. everybody, we'll put links up on our website, dtmwickedradio.com, to where you can find Mr. Uford's books and his inspirational videos. Don't forget, you can also hear us on iHeartRadio. We're everywhere. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Uford. It's been nothing short of a pleasure and an honor, and I look forward to having you on again. Everybody, I just want to say thank you for listening in. It is very cold. Please bring your pets inside. And always, always remember, spread love, not hate. Good night, everybody. Good night, Mr. Uford.
Good night.